it is my honor to invite our chief guest for this session, Honorable Mr. Justice S. Ravindra Bhatt, sir, renowned for his integrity and intellectual rigor. He has made a significant impact on Indian jurisprudence. I request Honorable Mr. Justice Ravindra Bhatt, sir, to come on stage and share some valuable insights. A great round of applause for Justice Ravindra Bhatt, sir.
Good evening. I see a thinner crowd and I also see a lot of bored and tired faces. So let me begin with some humor. All of you have heard of a lot of artificial intelligence, but you are very naturally tired. The point is, we are very human. We had very insightful speeches Padmesh made, and a very fervent, passionate plea for inclusion, for involvement of legal aid, going to the weakest sections of society and what needs to be done, what can be achieved by AI, what are the limits that humans can reach. Mr. Raghavendra Rao spoke a lot of intellectual property, and for someone versed with intellectual property, I was also quite bedazzled, shall I say, and overwhelmed. But then there's one thing, sir, it was an overload. The overload, why do I say it's an overload? When we talk of a particular topic, it is important for us to see our audience. I see an audience of law students primarily. I also see that many of them are acquainted with patent and IPR, but at the level at which you speak is perhaps a doctoral level. And with no disrespect meant, I think there was a lot of sense in what you meant, which is very solid. But at the same time, the point I'm trying to make is we should be less geeky. I hope we all understand what is geeky. Then let us be, when I was coming, I had two wonderful students who brought me here. I made a point to them and I thought I must convey it to you. When you're talking of AI or intellectual property or technology, tech as they call it, and that is one kind of silo. When you talk of law, that's another tech silo. How do you speak to each other? The speaking of both to each other is what makes it comprehensible to the human being and the common man. And ultimately the beneficiary of all this artificial intelligence is humankind. The question which both Mr. Raghavendra and the other speakers and Padmesh, all of them focused on was how much of enhancement to human values, how much of enhancement to human endeavor is it going to make. And there can be no doubt that it is going to make it is making and it is going to make a huge impact. At the same time, we have to understand some obvious factors, and I think the best person to have spoken about this was Mr. Raghavendra, which is that AI feeds on data. The more data you have, the more are the possibilities of exploiting that data, which is the knowledge base on which AI is created. And Padmesh made the plea that you must have data and there must have been data feeding points. But one more gloss I want to add. There has to be a standardization of data, that there should be a structuring of that data without which AI will not function. Every session has had some speaker enlightening you about the nature of controls which are needed, the ethical factors, and they have given you live examples which have hit the courts. We had this fascinating example by Mr. Raghavendra about the metaverse and its possibilities. And I believe now there are metaverse disputes which, in fact, an arbitration which took place in the metaverse. Now this is all something beyond us unless we experience it. It's a kind of virtual world where the performer which he mentioned, whom he mentioned, the opera singer, she was able to deliver her performance in the metaverse and her fans could see that. At the same time, there are some things which we humans uniquely possess: feelings, emotions, and compassion, and all those other attributes which make us human. And after all, let's not forget, AI was also created by a human. And let's not take away the fact that AI is also the product of not just a straight line thinker, but someone, AI, or for that matter, you're that wonderful man, Alan Turing, who created the computer. Now, what was the nature of his thought? He was an outlier. Bill Gates is an outlier. Every one of these giants, tech giants, is an outlier in the sense that they were unique in their thought processes. Now, that is what defines us. AI will only pick up as the AI that we know will pick up and predict and probably use it to the most amazingly efficient manner that we know its potential to be. Its processes are going to be faster, much faster than what we have experienced. Mr. Ravindra mentioned that each time there has been a technological shift, humankind has been able to cope with it. And I completely agree with it. Humankind will cope with AI. The only thing which will always be stumbling blocks is our own follies, our stupidities. AI cannot cure that. Whatever stupidities we have, whatever follies we have, whatever warts in our brain we have, which result to wars, which result to these disasters, which result in greed, that cannot be cured by AI. But AI will be a powerful tool as long as we choose to use it. Otherwise, there are these dire consequences. I remember in the early 2000s, when I'm sure Padmesh must have been just a 6-year or 7-year-old child, we had this wonderful trilogy called the Matrix trilogy. Now, that is what you can visualize the AI to be, the AI created world to be. Well, it could be, but then I'm a pessimist. I don't think we will reach there, because humankind will always produce someone who will be ahead of the curve. That's the peculiarity of the human brain, the genius of the human brain, because these outliers define our society. And I think all of us have confidence in that the essential creativity of the human mind, those poets who write those beautiful words which only AI will somehow aggregate, collect and churn out and come out with what we think is original. Likewise, AI, I know I have seen photographs, or rather images. You write out what you want and you get the product, which is an amazing painting, a graphic painting. But the fact remains, a Leonardo da Vinci or a Raja or Ravi Verma's original products will always remain the same. It will have the same appeal. It's like, if I can liken it, in an older generation, when McDonald's came to India or Burger King, people felt that this is not right, this is not our culture. Of course, it's not. But at the same time, it did not drive away our dhabas, our aloo tikkis, and our bhel puri. It continued to thrive, and it will always remain. So I think we should not be fearful of AI, nor should we be alarmist. We should be alive to what it is capable of, alive to its limitations, and as Mr. Ravindra said, conscious of what we can do with it. And it has to, in the end, right from the beginning, remain a tool and never a master. Thank you, and thank you for having me.